What's up, weirdos? Welcome back to my channel. My name is Felicia, as in Girly Gore here on YouTube. If you're a new subscriber that I met at New Jersey HorrorCon, I just want to say hi, welcome, glad you're here. And today I'm coming to you from my new apartment. I just moved this week. It was super stressful, but now I'm pretty much all moved in. There's still some stuff in, bags and whatever, but it's fine. I'm gonna set up a new filming area that I'm really excited about, that's gonna have like more spooky stuff in the background for y'all to look at. But for now, we're just coming to you from the couch. So today we're talking about, obviously, the new Pet Sematary. I've been really excited about this movie for a while. I'm someone that doesn't mind remakes. I'm sort of like, yeah, sure, whatever. I like to see new interpretations of movies. I don't mind it. So the original Pet Sematary came out in 1989, and if you were at New Jersey HorrorCon, you probably got to meet some of those original actors, as did I. I have a few interviews that I will get up in the next few days for you guys to look at, which was really exciting. But today we're talking about the new one. So I went on Saturday night, which was last night. 10:40 movie. It was pretty packed, which was great. And I'm just gonna start with what I liked, then I'll go into what I didn't like, and then we'll do some ratings. So, what I liked. I liked the big change. Before I get started, this is a spoilers review, full on spoilers. I didn't know how to talk about this movie in the ways in which I wanted to without spoilers. So if you're not interested in that, just click away and I'll see you next time. No big deal. But if you're cool with it, let's talk about it. So, what did I like? The big change. I personally love the big change that they did give away in the second trailer, which I'm sure all of you have heard about by now. My God, what a to-do on the internet, my God. So basically the daughter, Ellie, is the one killed by the truck in the movie instead of the son, Gage. So Kevin Kolsch and Dennis Widmeyer, I heard them talk about this on the Boo Crew podcast. They were guests from this past week's episode. Great podcast, check it out. But I was listening to them talk about this choice before I saw the movie, and then when I saw it, I got what they mean. They're talking about having an older child that is starting to have questions about death and the afterlife, if there is one, and starting to have these big world questions for the first time, being the one that has to go through it. It felt right to me, and I was like, okay, like this choice, I'm down with it. I'm cool with it. I loved watching her do a little ballet dances. I loved, once again, spoiler review, I loved watching her do the ballet dance in her like dead dress. Hilarious. I was like, should I be that for Halloween? Should I be Ellie in her dead dress just knocking everything over in the living room? Great scene. I also thought John Lithgow, I never know if I say his name right, let's hope so, who played Judd, did a really great job. I thought he was a really nice Judd. So he never watched the original Pet Sematary, which I thought was like, at first I was like, that's crazy. And then I was like, oh, that actually is kind of nice. Because Fred Gwynne was such an iconic character as Judd, I did appreciate that he was coming in with like no odes towards the old Judd. It was like, I am doing this fully new realized character, and I think that is like cool. The second thing I liked, which is also sort of like a love-hate situation, was, so I'm always, obviously, as many are, so fascinated by Zelda, who is Rachel's sister who died when Rachel was a child. She blames herself. It's so sad. And so Zelda in this movie, you get a lot more just time with her, more backstory with her. And I liked that because I wanted that in the first movie. And so I did like that they like went a little further into that world, into the flashbacks. But somehow Zelda wasn't as scary. Like, yes, they had some jump scares for the character, like when she falls down the like chute thing with the, that was cool, yay. But something about the original Zelda, I think there's like a scene in the original movie where she's like eating really grossly. I didn't feel as terrified of her in this movie, which was strange to me. But I'm not sure why, but I was grateful to have a little bit more backstory about Rachel and Zelda. And the last thing I'll say that I loved is Church. So I think they had 10 different cats that played Church throughout the movie. But I just thought the character of Church in this one, obviously the cat looks much better than the original 1989 movie, like that's just a given, but also I just felt like Church had more of a personality in this one. I just loved the cats they used. They were like so amazing. And then there's this scene where like Ellie's like trying to brush Church's fur, and it's just like making these horrible noises that I was like, Yes. And one more thing I did like is I saw some people saying they didn't like the ending, but I actually kind of liked it, like the full family now being, you know, undead and coming towards Gage in the car. I thought that was pretty fun. Like, I was like, okay, I'm into it. I like it. Okay, now let's talk about some things I did not love. So the first thing I'll say about Pet Sematary is I feel like, and this is a personal opinion, as is everything on this channel, I have a hard time not finding Pet Sematary in any form not cheesy. Like, there are cheesy things about this story. I think the scariest things about the story are the real life horror situations, which I think are the things that Stephen King found was scary. Like a child dying on this horrible road. Like, a lot of the things in Pet Sematary are based off of Stephen King's actual house in Maine and the fears he had when he moved there with his kids. And so that stuff in the movies feels the scariest to me. But when you have like a zombie cat and such, and you have flashbacks and you have ancient burial grounds, it's like there are certain things about it that are just gonna feel a little cheesy. And I felt like in the original, I don't mind it as much because it's the late 80s and I feel like that's part of the movie, that's part of what we wanted. But something about, and I hate that I'm doing this, but I think part of me is like looking at the It remake and thinking back to the miniseries and the huge jump in like realism and horror and like different types of scary and all these things, this huge leap of the genre over the years to get from the original miniseries to the It remake, that I think is just this great thing. And then when you have the Pet Sematary to the Pet Sematary, it feels like they didn't make it extra special in some sort of way. They didn't reamp it in a way that felt new. Like, yes, they made a huge plot change and a plot change towards the end as well, but it still didn't feel fresh enough for me. I had sort of two problems also with the overall film. It's that it felt very soundstagey to me. It felt very false in terms of its environment, which is confusing because the two houses are like real houses and they're actually across the street from each other, so they should feel real, and like that sort of does. But something about the woods feels so fake to me, and feels like there's too much fog. There's too much dry ice on set is what I'm trying to say. There was too much spooky fog like throughout the whole movie. I was like, we get it, the woods are scary, like, and I like that the woods are scary, but like it felt like hokey to me, and it felt sort of like that scene in The Nun where she's like going down the hallway and there's just like all this fog and you're like, why is there all this fog? Like, that doesn't make sense to me. It felt like not the most 2019 choice to me, I guess. It felt like an old school choice, and not one that was very effective. The other thing I felt disappointed by was, so in the original Pet Sematary, Pascal is my favorite character, because he really is played like a guardian angel. When I talked to Brad Greenquist at New Jersey HorrorCon, he even said like on his script when he was filming the original Pet Sematary, he just had pictures of angels all over it. And I felt like that really came across in the movie. And though the actor that played Pascal in the remake is a fine actor, it just felt like either he was portrayed as too spooky, or he wasn't given enough to work with or something. I'm not sure what the problem was, but it just felt like that character didn't matter as much as we need him to, because he needs to be the light in the darkness, even though he's like got half his brain hanging out. Do you know what I mean? And the last thing I'll say is that I just wish they had leaned into the weird a little bit more. For example, my favorite thing from the trailer was, you know, the kids in the animal masks doing this processional with the drums. Like, that, to me, that imagery is so good, and I felt like it wasn't utilized, where I was like, I wish Ellie, when she followed them into the woods, she found them doing something weird, or like she saw something she shouldn't have in a more interesting way. I just felt like they had this like great thing to work with that they just sort of were like, eh. And I was like, but I wanted that. And then, I hate to say it, but the character of Rachel in this one, even though it's more fleshed out than in the original Pet Sematary, it felt off to me. It felt like unimportant as well. And I felt like that whole character's journey in writing and performance got like messed up somehow. Like, even there's this scene of her like finding a picture of her sister in like a diary, and it's just like, we didn't need that. Like, it's just like, it made it cheesier. It made it like less important. And I just felt like her performance, like a lot of the things she said always felt cheesy. And that's one thing I also say is a lot of the lines in this one felt exceptionally cheesy to me. I don't know if it's because I'm thinking about in 2019 language and somehow it feels different when it's the 80s. I don't know, but it felt like I was just kind of like eye rolling. And I was like, why am I eye rolling? Like, why? And I'm like, because it's like weird text that's not being delivered super well. And it's like the text is like too dramatic for these like naturalistic performances. I don't even know. Okay, and now let's get to some ratings. For the scare, I'm gonna give it a 2. And I'm worried this is influenced by me knowing the story so well that like I wasn't surprised or overwhelmed by any of the like plot, because I already like know what's gonna happen. But even so, like the building of tension and the scares in the movie were just not super effective for me. Gore gets like a 3.5. It's interesting because this movie is rated R, but something about it feels a little bit PG-13 to me. But I guess there is like a good amount of blood in certain parts of the movie. I guess I get it. It does feel PG-13 to me. Does anyone else feel that way? I don't know. Let me know down below. The cheese, I'm giving a 4. I feel I just can't get over some of the lines and the way in which they were delivered. I'm just like, it was really cheesy. It was kind of hard sometimes. And overall, I'm giving it a 3. I think it's a perfectly average horror movie. It didn't really give me anything new or special that I wanted, other than the plot change. But in terms of like the movie itself, I just was kind of like meh. So I would say I wouldn't rush to the theater to go see it. I think you would have the same exact experience watching it in your home on your own couch as you would in the theater. Oh, and how could I forget one of my biggest complaints is that, so they have this like opening sequence where they show, you know, blood on the steps, so the bad things that are yet to come, and then they go back in time and they're, you know, driving towards the house. And it was just like, what a waste of time, because it's a remake, so we already know what the plot of the movie is. Like, we already know what's gonna happen, so why are you showing it to us when the movie first starts, and then taking us back in time? It just felt like, I was like, what's the point of this? And that's it, guys. If you've seen the movie, let me know what you thought of it down below, and I will see you in my next video. Have a nice screen. Bye.